dialogue. Russia rejects the draft UN resolution about Syria because of its contradictions. Units of the Syrian Arab Army deal heavy blows to the terrorists of the so-called Jabhat al-Nusra. The people of Venezuela elect a new president today, and Maduro seems the most likely winner. Documents the Syrian authorities of causing the deterioration of human rights in the country and ignored the evidence of the violation of human rights by the armed groups. The Russian Foreign Ministry pointed out that the draft resolution was full of contradictions. On the one hand, it supported the delegitimization of the legal Syrian government and giving assistance to the armed opposition. On the other hand, the draft resolution makes many demands from this government, and this means that it recognizes its legitimacy. During his meeting with head of the Omani al-Shura Council in Tehran today, Iranian President Mahmoud Ahmadinejad said that conflicts and wars lead to nothing but destruction, killings and vindictiveness, calling to resolve all disagreements through dialogue. Ahmadinejad pointed out that the Iranian people support the Syrian people to go out of the crisis, asserting the right of both the Syrian and Bahraini peoples to determine their own future by themselves. The Iranian Foreign Minister Ali Akbar Salehi renewed Iran's principled attitude to the crisis in Syria on the basis of supporting the peaceful political methods as the only way to find a solution. The continuation of the current situation threatens to move into other countries. The minister expressed hope that the countries of the region will exert effort to prevent the spread of the implications of the crisis. Salehi added that Iran strongly opposed foreign intervention in Syria's internal affairs and stands against supporting the terrorist groups which escalate violence and carry out more terrorist acts. He added that the Syrian people should be allowed to determine their political future and destiny within the context of its national interests and its peaceful, legitimate demands. The correspondent of Syrian TV in Aleppo, Shadi Hulwa, was injured along with both cameramen, Yahya Musalli and Ahmed Suleiman, during their coverage of a terrorist attack in the city. TV sources said that two terrorists were driving an Avanti car when they disembarked at a checkpoint. They appeared to wear explosive belts. One terrorist was able to blow himself up, while the other was killed. When the TV news team went to cover the attack, the mentioned booby-trapped car was detonated by a remote control, injuring 18 people, including the journalists. The injuries of both Shadi Hulwa and Ahmed Suleiman are slight, while those of their colleague Yahya Musalli are serious. The Syrian Arab Army units confronted the attempts of terrorist groups to attack the summit of Nebi Yunus in the Lataqi countryside. The Syrian Arab Army units destroyed 5 vehicles full of weapons and ammunition, killing and wounding a large number of terrorists, including Abdurrazzaq Farkoush and the Saudi Hamad Ahmed al-Sani'i. The Syrian Arab Army units also targeted groups and hideouts of the terrorist Jabhat al-Nusra in several villages, killing and wounding many terrorists of different nationalities, including the Libyan Ahmed Abu Qasuma, the Egyptian Omar Sayyid Ali, the Moroccan Abdel Aziz Makensi, the Yemeni Omar al-Tash, and the 2 terrorists Hamad Sheikh al-Ashra and Khalil Abdel Aziz. The Syrian Arab Army units also targeted groups of terrorists in the villages of Al-Suda and Durin, killing and wounding many terrorists, including Iraqis, Jordanians, Kuwaitis, and Saudis. The army destroyed 6 vehicles carrying machine guns and anti-aircraft weapons. The Syrian Arab Army units clashed with terrorists who were committing crimes of murder and looting in Deir ez-Zor, killing and wounding many of them, in addition to the destruction of 7 vehicles carrying machine guns that the terrorists used in their crimes. In Dalla and its countryside, the Syrian Arab Army units and security forces killed and wounded many terrorists from the so-called Jabhat al-Nusra and destroyed their equipment and hideouts in several villages. The dead terrorists included some who belonged to the so-called the Brigade of Islam of the terrorist organization al-Qaeda. In the village of Tasya, the security forces destroyed the hideouts and vehicles of the terrorists, including some Jordanians. In the village of Hayt near the Yarmouk Valley, the Syrian Arab Army units killed and wounded several terrorists, including Egyptians and Jordanians. A terrorist group targeted the two minarets of Al-Umari and Al-Karak mosques, which are of the most ancient minarets in the Islamic world. The terrorists also destroyed a tunnel near the town of Mahja along the Damascus-Daraa highway using large amounts of highly explosive materials. On the Damascus-Daraa highway, 4 brothers were killed when the terrorists fired mortar shells on houses near the fuel station of Al-Iman. In Aleppo and its countryside, the Syrian Arab Army units carried out a series of qualitative operations against mercenary terrorists and scored direct hits. The Syrian Arab Army units clashed with terrorist groups along the way to Al-Musalme near Handarat and in the vicinity of the central prison of Aleppo, killing many of them, destroying their vehicles. In other operations, the Syrian Arab Army units killed and wounded many terrorists in several villages in the Aleppo countryside. In the city of Aleppo, the Syrian Arab Army units destroyed terrorist vehicles in a large-scale operation, clashing with terrorists in Sheikh Said area and in several other areas. In the Damascus countryside, the Syrian Arab Army units killed and wounded all the members of terrorist groups that targeted innocent civilians in the square of the broadcasting station. Among the dead terrorists were Abu Khalid al-Shami, Abu Mus'ab al-Shami, Sultan al-Jasumi, and Nuruddin al-Rifai. In the Damascus countryside, the Syrian Arab Army units foiled a terrorist attempt to detonate a booby-trapped car in the village of Zakiya and were able to defuse it. The security forces also foiled an attempt to smuggle a lorry full of weapons and ammunition into the eastern Ghouta along the Damascus-Homs highway. The lorry came from the Lebanese border. The terrorist Ahmed Mohammed Bashir Rabah from Yabrud tried to escape, but the security forces killed him. The confiscated weapons were hidden inside the lorry and included RPGs and various medical compounds. The writer Jihad Nafia wrote in the Lebanese paper Al-Diyar that Akkad had become the main base of the armed Syrian opposition. He asserted that northern Lebanon continued to witness the arrival of large numbers of armed terrorists from Syria into Wadi al-Khalid. The writer asserted that Akkad had become the safe passage of the armed terrorists deployed in the region. The British Sunday Times published an article by Michael Pearl in which he warned that the numbers of Western extremists volunteering to fight in Syria was causing anxiety throughout Europe. The writer said that there was no excuse for any Western government to ignore the large number of its citizens who go to fight in Syria. The Press TV channel in Iran interviewed the American political analyst Kevin Barrett, who asserted that the US and Israel were using the Qaeda terrorist organization to fragmentize Syria in order to do away with all the potential enemies of Israel in this region. Barrett asserted that this was part of an operation aimed at destabilizing Syria and the Middle East, according to a Zionist plot prepared a long time ago. Barrett added that Syria is the main place where members of al-Qaeda exist. It seems that Washington, the NATO and the UN are quite happy to allow them to create havoc and chaos in Syria. He asserted that the hypocrisy of the Western forces had gone out of all control. A Russian plane carrying salvation and medical assistance as a gift to the Syrian people from the Russian people. Russian social organizations carried out campaigns of donations to the Syrian people, including basic materials, various medicine and other requirements to alleviate the effects of the crisis on the Syrian people. Last week, Russia sent 2 planes full of humanitarian assistance to the Syrian refugees in both Lebanon and Jordan. Thousands of Bahrainis demonstrated near the capital Manama, calling for political, social and economic reforms, demanding the stop of policies of marginalization practiced by al-Khalifa rulers against them. Meanwhile, demonstrations were held in the village of Al-Sanabis near Al-Manama and in the southern parts of the country, rejecting Formula One race which is set to be held on Friday. Al-Khalifa's security forces used tear gas and sand bombs to disperse the demonstrators, arresting a number of them. The new demonstrations came as part of the week of protests called upon by Bahraini opposition against the race, which is set to be held at a time when the rulers continue their crash-downs on the peaceful movement demanding reforms. Venezuelans headed to the polls today to elect a new president who would be the successor of the late President Hugo Chavez. 19 million eligible voters will choose among 7 competing candidates, most important of which are acting President Nicolas Maduro and opposition leader Miranda State Governor Enrique Capriles. Acting President Nicolas Maduro had a double-digit lead in most polls. The vote is crucial for a country which will decide between the socialist approach represented by Maduro and the shift towards capitalism represented by businessman Capriles. That was it. For more details, you can visit our website, syriaonline.sy. It's over after the break to our economic news. God bless you and long live Syria.
Good afternoon. The Minister of Electricity emphasized that most of the electricity projects are ongoing, whether projects of distribution, transportation or generating establishments, as some of them will be working soon, while 2 electricity stations will enter service in few days, with more than a 3 billion Syrian pound cost. He added that the ministry signed several contracts with a number of companies belonging to the friendly countries in order to provide alternatives for the materials which were stolen and attacked by terrorists. So over 22 contracts were signed with more than a $120 million cost. Projects which are under implementation by the Water Resources Directorate of Damascus and its countryside reached 109 million Syrian pounds this year. The manager of the directorate showed that the projects include building Wadi al-Waghir Dam in al-Nabek area with about a 90.91 million Syrian pound cost, in addition to rehabilitating Wadi al-Qarn with over a 14 million Syrian pound cost, noting that the current circumstances and the acts of sabotage were reasons behind delaying such projects, as machines, establishments, irrigation canals and pumping sets estimated by 70 million Syrian pounds were totally destroyed by terrorists. The Minister of Agriculture stressed that the climate conditions and the rainfall, in addition to the moderate temperature, helped in growing the wheat crops. He noted that lands cultivated with irrigated wheat are generally good, as well as lands cultivated with rain wheat, indicating the positive role of the stakeholders in providing the energy carriers of the supplementary irrigation types. The Minister also said that the Ministry of Oil allocated part of the diesel tanks reaching Al-Hasaka for the agricultural sector, especially lands cultivated with irrigated wheat, which needs supplementary irrigation types. The medical company Temico's local production was estimated at 1.374 billion Syrian pounds last year. The production and marketing report for last year has shown that Temico's production has reached 849 million Syrian pounds, with an 85% improvement compared with the previous year. The director declared that some suggestions for improving the work performance and productivity have been submitted by Temico to the General Establishment of Chemical Industry and have been transferred to the Ministry of Industry, that include establishing a new modern factory for medical products according to the international standards within the border of the Syrian factory, where the infrastructure has been already installed. Some statistics issued by the French Ministry of Foreign Affairs declared that the number of French youth who travel for seeking a better job has increased by 14% since 2008. The statistics also showed that more than 155,000 youth between 18 and 25 years old live outside the country due to the economic crisis. The French Institute for Statistics and Economic Studies highlighted that the unemployment rate has reached 25%, and that the number of the unemployed has reached more than 3 million, registering a high record last month. A document for the meeting of the financial ministers of the G20 showed that the group will study a suggestion for reducing the governmental debts in the long term to less than 90% of the local production. This document, which has been adopted today by the financial ministers of the European Union, declared that the suggestion will be taken into account regarding considering the financial goals as a good basis for discussion. And now over to the exchange rates according to the bulletin of the Central Bank of Syria. And with this we conclude our news. Thank you for watching and goodbye.